All right, so let's get into the submissions to the People's Panic Meter, starting with a video on Brian Thomas Jr. from Zuffa. I believe I'm saying that right. Sends in this video on BTJ.
All right, boys, I need to know how panicked you are with Brian Thomas because it's been 4 weeks at this point, and during these 4 weeks, I have not been having fun, not one bit. And I think every Brian Thomas manager would say the same because you took this guy with such high draft capital. Like a lot of people took him in the second round. Some people even drafted him in the first round. Okay. And at best, he's been giving you like what? Wide receiver 3 production. So it's like, what do you even do? Like, do you sell him if people are even buying Brian Thomas at all? Do you just sell him low and just try and get this headache off your hands? Or do you just hold because I think we all can agree this is the worst it's going to get, but like, what, you just keep throwing him out there in your lineup and getting 6 to 8 points every week? So I don't know what to do. I am a broken man, if you can't tell, and I would love to hear what you have to say about Brian Thomas. Thank you.
Okay, first of all, if you're listening to this, I'm sorry to talk about the video and the way it looks, but if you're watching, you can see it. Zuffa's got himself a hell of a setup there. I mean, he looks like he's ready to host a show. I don't want to give the bosses any ideas, but I mean, damn, camera looking great. The sound setup was awesome. I mean, he's got a podcasting station set up right in his kitchen. Boone, he completely put our visual setup to shame. I think he should probably just host the show.
Or at least like get over here and start to set up some lighting for me or something. Yeah, that looked fantastic. But I'm with him. Like, this is a tough situation. And I have BTJ on some teams. I did send him to my bench. I am ready to do that. And he is still producing, right? Like it's one of those situations. We talked about this with Drake London in past weeks where it's like, he's not giving you zeros, like, 4 for 49, 2 for 55, 5 for 49. It's passable. It's just not what you paid for. It is not what you expected when you drafted him as high as people did. And I mean, even though the usage is there, do we think something's going to change? Do we think that he all of a sudden is going to start to make good on it and just rattle off a bunch of big games? I mean, the Chiefs, the Seahawks, and the Rams are his next 3 opponents here, and then a bye after that. I'm in total panic here, Harmon. And it's not that he's not going to be a decent fantasy receiver, like sort of like the video said, right? Like he could be a wide receiver 3, maybe even a low end wide receiver 2. But I don't think this is going to turn around now. I don't have the confidence that I had when we were looking at Drake London and saying like, wait, everything is there. He looks okay. There's just an injury. He's going to get over that and he'll be fine. And sure enough, he did. With BTJ, I'm not seeing that right now. I'm not seeing a guy who seems confident, who seems like he's going to turn things around. I see a guy who seems to have lost some of his confidence and isn't making the plays that you'd expect him to make out there. So my standpoint on him is that I'm moving him way down into that low end wide receiver 2, kind of high end wide receiver 3 range. And I'm in a total panic.
I think we were at total panic last week, right? Or were we only at some panic? I mean, at this point, I think I don't want to say he's a coping corner candidate just because it's too early for somebody that's at this level. Okay. Like a guy that was drafted in
for that.
He seems too good for that. A first, second round pick. I think it's too early for coping corner, but we are trending a little bit towards it is what it is type situation. We've got the tweet up from Nate Tice here. And this is something that I sometimes, Boone, and especially on a Sunday when I'm watching games, I get a little bit divorced. I don't know if this happens to you, but I get a little bit divorced from the fantasy like scoring and implication of these games sometimes, because when I was watching that game on Sunday, I actually felt really encouraged, as Nate was pointing out in the tweet we just showed here, that I could tell they were like working him on some outbreaking routes, because we've talked about this, that his biggest issue, and this is a thing he has got to get over at some point if he wants to be a real deal wide receiver 1, is working over the middle of the field, especially in this offense. That's where most of the action flows. That's where we want our fantasy wide receivers being targeted. We want them getting those over the middle in breaking routes. But in order to build his confidence back up, they were making a concerted effort to throw him some more outbreaking routes where it just, Lawrence gets it's the first read. Lawrence gets to the back of the top of the drop, and just rips it to BTJ working towards the sideline. Now there was one of those plays where BTJ did not get his foot in bounds. That was a play that was left on the field. So again, it wasn't perfect, but I remember seeing that performance and being like, all right, that's good. That's a good sign to me that they're trying to build his confidence up. They know that they need him, right, over the course of the season. And then you look at the final stat line, it's 5 for 49 or whatever it was. So it's like, oh, right, well, still a pretty poor performance from your second round pick in fantasy football. So while that was encouraging, it doesn't necessarily change my opinion on the matter right now that he is a guy that looks like he's going to go down as a second round pick.
Yeah, and like you said off the top there, like I'm willing to give it another week or two before we're putting him completely into the coping corner, because he is still giving people something, and yet at the same time follow my actions and not just my words. And I'm telling you, on the teams that I have him, where I have a passable another option, I'm putting him on my bench for that player. And the instances this week, it was guys who were like in the same kind of range, like wide receiver 2, high end wide receiver 3 types. And it worked out for me. So I will probably continue to do that until we see BTJ actually come through with a big game and something actually change here. And yeah, it's encouraging that they're trying, but when you see the stat line at the end of it in a game where they were trying to get him going, that's almost more concerning in my mind.
Yeah, he just doesn't. Right now, they can't give him the sort of layups that you would usually expect from a wide receiver 1. I don't think he has a screen target all year. And last year, he averaged over 10 yards per target on screens. Instead, they've gone to Travis Hunter. They've gone to the running backs. They've gone to some of the bit players in the offense. And that is definitely it's kind of just shaving off the floor here, where you're getting these 50 point or these sub 50 yard games here from BTJ consistently. He's wide receiver 48 in fantasy points per game right now. So there's a lot of guys that went after him that I would straight up rather have. So I kind of like Zufa's idea of that if he has a big game, maybe then you try to flip him. And you just kind of have to live with the fact of, hey, you might be flipping him at the time where it's going to turn around for him. But yeah, at this point, he is somebody that I'm pretty concerned about the rest of the season. And he'll be interesting to discuss once we get into like November and December. Has he turned it around, and what do we think about him from a dynasty perspective? But that is a conversation for another day. We've just got to continue to see him stack weeks. Let's go to another second-year player here. Travis sends in this email on Brock Bowers. Hey guys, I'm surprised that nobody's really pointed out Brock Bowers' lack of production so far, probably because the spotlight has been on Ashton Genty's struggles to this point. What is the real cause for this? The knee injury bothering him, Geno's lack of competence, Chip Kelly's scheme the culprit? I think this is a really good point here, Boone, from Travis, that we've been very focused on Ashton Genty's disappointing start, that maybe we haven't given enough spotlight to Brock Bowers' rather disappointing season so far. Where are you at with the Raiders tight end?
Before this week, I was at no panic. Now I'll give it some panic now that it's been 3 kind of down games for him. But I mean, this dude just led all tight ends with a 30% target share this week, right? Like, I know the volume's a little bit down, but this guy is still one of the premier players at his position. And I think we can directly trace the dip in production to the injury, right? Because week 1, over 100 yards, every game since, under 50 yards. And I think as he gets further removed from the injury, I think we're going to see his numbers bump back up. I think the reason that, I wasn't totally worried before is because I thought at some point we were going to see the volume kind of change. And that is the thing that's causing me some panic, is that the overall volume in this passing game, it just hasn't been there. We were projecting a rise in volume with Chip Kelly showing up with his up-tempo attacks in the past, but it's been a 15% decline in passing attempts from 37.4 to 31.8 per game. Shout out to Jared Smola, Draft Sharks, for that one. So, if you want to make a case for the volume being even more of a worry than I'm saying it is right now, I would even listen to that. I'm going to keep this at some panic because I think the player is so talented that this is another one of those scenarios where he is going to eventually come through when he's 100% healthy. But, the situation isn't quite as good as maybe we thought it was going to be before the season.
I love this tweet that we're showing from Andrew Cooper at Coupe Fiasco. We've talked a lot about Andrew Cooper and his great tight end analysis on the show here. Folks were tired of drafting Kyle Pitts and watching him deal with quarterback, play calling, and knee issues. So instead, they spent up on Brock Bowers to watch him deal with quarterbacks, play calling, and knee issues, which is that is pretty perfect. That's kind of chef kiss for the last, generational tight end prospect. Kyle Pitts is kind of, we're seeing a lot of the same things here with Brock Bowers. Now, I'm with you that I think most of the lack of production has been from the knee injury. He did not look right from weeks 2, week 3. I just didn't think we saw the same player. The route participation has been up. Michael Mayer obviously missed a lot of week 3. He missed all of week 4 with a concussion, so maybe that has something to do with it. But yeah, he's targeted on 30% of his routes here, 2.3 yards per route run in this game. I think we could see him get better and better from a playing perspective over the course of the next few weeks. But I think there really are some systemic issues that also that makes me agree with you in thinking we should at least have some panic here. Geno is not playing well right now. And like, there's no excuse, oh no, it's actually this, that. Like, he's putting the ball in harm's way and making mistakes, and they just don't have good enough players in the passing game beyond Brock Bowers when he's 100% healthy, and Jacoby Myers, good solid player, but they don't have the type of receivers that work well with Geno Smith's style of play. That has me concerned over the long term. So this is why I've been referencing this episode a lot lately when we've talked about the Raiders, that they were a bit of a red flag offense coming to this year because of that episode that I did with Nate where like ADP rank versus projected offensive efficiency. They were such a big outlier in that they had these 2 guys going in the top 20 overall picks, and yet nobody really expected them to be a good offense. And frankly, I think they've been worse than many of the projections have been so far. So I definitely think there should be some concern about Bowers being a difference-making tight end. Probably won't be like, this guy killed you, but it can definitely look bad in hindsight when you take a tight end who is just a top 5 tight end, not like a weekly advantage player, and you skipped out on some of those second-round picks. Now, there's been bad picks in the second round. We just talked about Brian Thomas Jr., a second-round pick. But still, it can bang you if you didn't end up going with a Jonathan Taylor or a Puka Nacua when he was falling into the second round amid the whole Matthew Stafford back scandal.
Yeah, when you're taking a tight end in that range, they need to be that week winner for you. They need to be putting up, top 12 wide receiver kind of numbers. And that's what we expected from him and McBride, and Bowers certainly has fallen short so far. So I still think it's going to be fine. And from like a great game strategy standpoint, like, what are you actually going to do though, right? Like, are you going to trade him after 3 bad weeks and take a huge loss, and then he gets healthy and turns it around? And now who is your tight end? Like, if you were able to get a Juwan Johnson, if you were able to draft like another tight end later, like a Tyler Warren, like I know there's some teams out there that have like a McBride or a Bowers and then also took Warren later. If you have one of those guys, maybe you can consider it. But other than that, you don't want to get yourself into that weekly tight end streamer game. That is not a fun place to be. So I think you're just holding Bowers right now. You might have a little bit of panic like us, and then you hope that as he gets further removed from the injury, he turns it around and becomes that player that we expected him to be. Though I think the ceiling might be just slightly lower than we were projecting before the season.